Hi, Kennedy. I'm so happy to have you joining me on Nina's Notes today. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really great to be here. I'm happy to talk to you today.
Good. It's so excited to meet you and learn more about your background. I know that you've worked at this intersection of biotech and AI. Can you tell me a bit about what you were doing in your research kind of before you moved into really your professional career?
Yeah, so my educational background's in evolutionary biology and genetics. I was trained by Michael Rose at UC Irvine here in Southern California. And for those who are familiar with the longevity or aging related disease field, Michael Rose is kind of one of the pioneers of that field. So I trained in his lab. And he has this really famous experiment that started in 1980, developing a pretty famous longevity animal model called the Methuselah fruit fly. And there's just this population of flies bred for super longevity. Each generation is eggs are selected a little bit later. And that experiment is still ongoing. So it's 45 years old now. And I still have those flies. I'm still selecting them for longevity. They live a really long time now. Your normal fruit fly lives about 4 weeks. These live like 8 months. And so, yeah, so I've been a longevity biologist for about 20 years. And that's kind of how I stumbled into the AI field, because trying to see what we can glean from these long-lived animal models and compare them to humans, because obviously we can't do an experiment like that with humans. It would take 10,000 years, and then there's ethical questions involved. But we can use artificial intelligence to do these cross-species analyses between these long-lived animal models and human genomes, and see what the actual commonalities and patterns are, so we can have a much more accurate model of the aging process, and then have a better idea of what genetic targets would be the best to go after to prevent chronic diseases or treat diseases of aging. And so that's how I met Ben Goertzel in the first place, the CEO of SingularityNet, AI guru. We were doing some analyses with the fruit flies and publicly available human data sets. And we actually found some really good pathways to study for Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And we did a lot of research in those two areas, and we were actually able to develop a AI designed nutraceutical that we actually ended up testing in Alzheimer's patients, and we had really good results with it. So fast forward years later, now here we are, and that same AI has just advanced. The advancements in technology now are really incredible. We have even more capabilities. Of course, we know more about the aging process now and aging biology. So that sort of primitive version of that platform we used before, my team at Rejuve.Biotech now is advancing forward and building a true AI co-scientist. So a platform to really help scientists with that translational medicine valley of death is what we call it. So like benchtop to clinic, where most projects tend to fail. And so we're hoping to alleviate that by helping to identify causal variants and mechanisms much earlier in the process rather than later in the process. And so we'll have more capabilities to do these cross species analyses, to do analyses across different human populations, and come up with a true systems biology model of the aging process. So then we can really go after preventing these chronic diseases. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Tell me a bit more about Rejuve.Bio. Like you saying you're this co-pilot for scientists.
Mhm.
So does that mean like any external scientist that's doing research can come to you and use the platform, or what are the steps really to use you?
Yeah, so we will be launching our beta here in the next month, and we are open to beta testers. Anybody who is interested can contact us. We're kind of doing the beta on sort of a custom process. So each beta tester coming to us and telling us exactly what they need, what they're going to use it for, and we'll do something a bit more custom like that. But basically, it's a neurosymbolic platform. So using the new architecture developed by our partners at SingularityNet, it will always require a scientist in the loop. And so it's not just like a bunch of LLMs stacked on top of each other that's meant to completely cut a scientist out of this process. We want a scientist to always be there in the loop to update the rules in the system, to update the data so it stays grounded in science and is a lot more accurate, doesn't hallucinate, and is a much better tool for actual science from all the way from basic research through translation, not just pigeonholed into straight drug discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the system has like two main modules. One of them is the whole system is centered around knowledge metagraph, which is like just a giant graph of graphs in like all dimensions. And what that does is it's able to organize like seemingly unrelated data in a way that makes sense, and in a way that humans could. It would be a hard way for a human to organize this amount of data from these different sources in this way. It allows you to query that data and draw forward any patterns that you're looking for. And then what you can do with those subgraphs that you've gotten from that huge graph, which we call atom spaces, you can then run our hypothesis generation system over it. And our hypothesis generation system is a bit unique. It uses probabilistic inference. So it kind of approaches a level of reasoning, and it will generate hypotheses for you in ranked order of like most likely to be true to least likely to be true. And so then you can decide which ones you want to go after. If you want to go after something that's a little bit more off the wall, you can. If you want to stay safer, you can go with the top ones. And we're having really good results in our benchmark testing with that. We have a AUC of about 80%, which means that the top ranked hypotheses that it gives you right now, 80% of the time, it's a true, real hypothesis. Wow. So yeah, so already like, better than doing science by hand. And so
Yes.
our
Wow.
hope is that, institutions like universities, smaller biotechs can use this system, either we'll have it deployed on the cloud if people are comfortable using a cloud-based system, or we have the option of actually installing it on your own hardware too, if you have sensitive data that you need to keep on your own campus. And so people can upload their data into it. It will build you a custom knowledge graph, or you can use the one we've already curated, and it will keep track of all your data for you. At the end, if you are going the drug discovery route and you need to submit applications to regulatory bodies, it does generate a nice report for you. So it's like explainable AI. It's not a black box. And that was something we really aimed to solve for, because a lot of the uptake in these AI tools, especially at the university level, has been very slow because scientists are kind of leery of the whole black box nature. I mean, one of the complaints I've heard of some of these protein folding programs like AlphaFold or what have you is that they're really great, but they give this scoring system that isn't defined anywhere. And so it's like, scientists have said to me, like, I can't submit this to the FDA. I can't submit this with my investigative new drug filing. Like, I need an explanation of what the score is and how it got there. That's something that we, from the beginning, we're like, no, we're having reports generated of what the AI did and how it got there, explaining how it got to the hypotheses that it generated, why the connections are there. So yeah, and then we will also have our cloud-based version, as I mentioned, which independent scientists can log into and use. It will be secure, and so people can rest assured that their data that they don't want out there will be just theirs. And then so that's and that will all be launched. You'll be able to find it like on our website here in the next like month or so. So yeah.
So in this valley of death, so like my
Uh-huh.
PhD was in drug discovery, so I'm very familiar with the drug discovery process.
Yeah.
And this sort of, maybe you're doing a screen and then you have your hits, you need to turn your hits into leads, you need to do optimization, and then you take it into the in vitro testing, and then you go in vivo testing.
Right.
What stage can you start applying these hypotheses? Can you start even before you do a screen, perhaps, or do you see that there are better results before you go into cellular model or animal model?
Yeah, so we built the system with the hope that it can be used at every stage. Like what we noticed is that as these tools were popping up for drug discovery and scientific research, was that there wasn't really much that was coming up for basic science research, like at the very beginning, which it makes sense because that stage of science isn't really sexy, but it's very, very necessary to establish those first principles and know what you're doing first. So our aim is to help people find the variants and the causal mechanisms at the very beginning, and so that they are targeting the correct pathway and the correct variant from the beginning, rather than what often happens is like, oh well, it looks like this gene's involved in this disease phenotype, and it's like, yeah, it looks good in your in vitro studies, looks good in your in vivo animal models, even you get to a human and it doesn't work, and it's like you go back to the drawing board and you find out, oh, it's actually this other SNP that we need to target that's on this gene next to this gene, or on this non-coding region that's nearby, that's influencing the expression of this gene and therefore the production of the protein and stuff. And so we want that information to be found out at the beginning. And so that was our goal in developing this system the way that we did. So yes, so the hypotheses can be used at the very beginning for every level, and you'll be able to update as you go on the results that you get, and the system will become smarter and generate more applicable hypotheses for you as you go on in your project.
What about the limitations of your model? Or also, like, we could talk more broadly about AI in drug discovery. What do you see are the biggest limitations? Yeah, I would say first for like your platform, and then second for just generally AI in drug discovery.
I mean, limitations, limitations I see, it can't, it can't do everything yet. And I agree with like not necessarily trusting an AI model to make 100%
Mm-hmm.
correct predictions yet. Like I think that AI models will still need to be used in conjunction with animal models here
Yeah,
for quite a
I
long
agree.
time still. I do see a future where we will be able to phase out animal models. I think that that will be possible, which will be great and will definitely speed things up in science and make it a lot less expensive and more accessible. But I think for a while, to be able to ground things and establish trust in these AI platforms, they will need to be used in conjunction with animal models here for a while. And I think and establishing those cross species analyses and finding what the true connections are between human genomes and all these animal model genomes, I think will make those studies much more productive, because we'll have a better idea of what to actually target in an animal model that will translate to a human. And then limitations in using AI for this stuff in general. One of the things that people probably have read, been reported in the news as this stuff has come up, is that one of the big problems we have in our biomedical research is the training data for human genomes. It tends to skew Northern European,
Mm,
right?
yep.
A lot of the training data we have is pretty much just white people,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. And more
that is,
men as well.
and more men. Yes, exactly. And so that is a big problem, because you can only build AI models that are as good as their training data.
Hmm.
And so we do need to focus on getting more data to make these models better. You know, one of the great promises of AI for biomedical research is eventually getting to true personalized medicine. But the thing is, to understand one person really well, you have to understand a lot of people really well, and people from all backgrounds. And so one of the big questions is, how do we do that? How do we get into these, you know, areas of the globe that have been neglected for these clinical trials, that people haven't fought to like make a real effort to go in and get this data. And so that's an area where I think more effort towards decentralized science
Hmm.
can help solve for, whether it's building apps or incentivizing people like tokenomically to participate in these trials, like actually paying people for their data, like paying them like for real, like something, paying them something meaningful for their data. I think it's time to look at those systems and really establish doing that. Because I mean, I've run clinical trials before for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and the type of people who are willing to and able to take that time off to go into a clinic to have these tests done and stuff. I mean, it naturally selects for a very specific population of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a general limitation that I see. So um,
Tell me more about how Rejuve.Bio is contributing to the decentralized science or DeSci movement. I've worked in a couple DeSci projects, so I definitely am like on board with this belief
yes,
of
yes,
more citizen science, especially
yes.
rewarding people for their data. So I'm very curious about how Rejuve.Bio works on that side.
Right. So yes, in decentralized science, I think is a really great movement, and I think it's the way we have to go at this point. And then especially, you know, me being in the United States and seeing the way things are going in terms of our structures for funding scientific research and how they're just kind of being torn down, and we're being told what we're allowed to research now and stuff. I think decentralized science is kind of the only way that we have out of this, and it's a good way to continue to enjoy the level of scientific progress that we've had so far, and even accelerate it because it encourages more people around the world to collaborate together. Like it kind of removes the this country versus that country
Mm-hmm.
race, I think. And so at Rejuve.Bio specifically, so our platform we're open sourcing. So we invite people to, look at our GitHub repos, come help with us if you want to. So our base code's all open source. We also are aiming to develop some open source like data consortiums, contributing to a massive knowledge graph of data that people want to contribute. If it's data they've finished using or data they don't mind sharing, that's an initiative that we hope to establish. We also are developing ideas of using blockchain for data security, so people can actually share data that they want to keep proprietary, but others can still use it through like encryption, things like that. That's another way that we're doing that as well. And then we have a sister company, also Rejuve AI, that has developed a customer facing app for longevity called the Longevity app that people can download and they can contribute their health data to. And it is tokenomically incentivized through the RJV token. And people are paid for their health data. And what's cool about that is we have this plan that people can contribute their health data to certain research projects that we're working on the biotech sides. When we start using our platform in house for actual therapeutic developments, people will be able, if we have like a project going on, like, oh, we're researching Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or whatever, people can say like, oh, I want to contribute my data to this, I want to contribute my data to that. And then if we come up with some blockbuster product that makes $1 billion or whatever, people will get a portion of those proceeds. There's profit; it serves as a profit sharing mechanism. So sort of like the complete opposite of what 23andMe did. So people actually get a piece of the pharmaceutical pie rather than all of us just lining our pockets with it with sharing. And we're hoping that incentivizes more people to come help and seeing that they can actually monetize their data and contribute to the development of more effective, accessible medicines for some of these devastating diseases of aging. Yeah.
What health data are you gathering from people? Is it wearable data? Are they uploading their entire EHR, like their whole health record? And how do you then standardize that to be usable?
Yeah. So the Rejuve app right now is collecting mainly through wearables. You can hook up your wearable to the app. You can also enter data manually as well. They're partnered with like True Diagnostics. some of the companies where you can have your aging clock measured, your DNA methylation measured, some of that stuff, and you can have that hooked up to the app as well, and you can download your latest like blood test results, what have you. So that can all be collected in there. And then we're not at the stage yet where we're having people like upload their entire EHR, but we are planning to get there eventually. I mean, that would be for Rejuve Biotech and Rejuve.AI, like some like a company like Epic or whatever would be a pretty large logical partner for us eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, and so but the way that we organize it so that the data is standardized is these our knowledge graphs, the way that they've been built, it's actually been built to organize the graph intrinsically, which is a really great feature that we've had built in. You can upload data into it pretty agnostically, and it will organize it for you. And then you can ask it for whatever patterns you want to draw out, and it will give it to you. So that's something that's really nice about it. And yeah, it has the potential to alleviate a lot of those pain points of organizing data in a way that makes sense and is usable. I mean, one of our dream goals someday would be to partner with some of these like pharmaceutical companies and just be able to sift through their data that's been discarded and see what can we find that's been hiding in plain sight that can actually help people, you know. So because I'm sure there's stuff in there.
Yeah. With decentralized science and
Mm-hmm.
people individually contributing their data, what do you think, or how do you think that's going to be the kind of the best approach for longevity science drug development? Is it more just because you get this spread of more diverse sets of data because of what you said before, how we just have a lot of this like North American population? Or do you think it's something else that's going to be valuable from this, I guess, this more like decentralized data gathering?
Well, I think there's several angles here. Like, I mean, number one, yeah, I mean, getting more diverse, usable data too. And then I think the thing about decentralized science is all, which I really like about it, is it's about accessibility. It's about making these things more accessible, like kind of taking research out of the ivory towers of academia and bringing it out and allowing everybody to participate in it. And I really think that will help better the reputation of scientific research and specifically biomedical scientific research. I mean, not to say anything like super controversial here, but I mean, I feel like during COVID, that was kind of one of our big communication problems. I really think there was an issue with, it became very apparent that there was a disconnect between what information people had and what they felt empowered by, and some of the scientists and doctors just saying like, no, just listen to us, we're the experts, you know. And obviously people were just kind of like, I saw people wanting to know more and like just sort of intrinsically like instinctively pushing back against that, you know, like kind of like teenagers like pushing against their parents or just listen to me. And I kind of felt like we sort of did the public a disservice by not educating or arming them with the information that empowered them. We're just kind of like, we're more patronizing, you know. And so I think that decentralized science has a potential to make medical research information and education more accessible by including more people in it and giving people agency to participate in this research. And I think that it could really help boost the reputation of biomedical research, and for, you know, when we have another situation like that, and we do need people to listen to the experts, and because it's a life or death thing, I think that we can, through decentralized science, people will have a lot better access to information that is true, that is real, that they feel like they have ingested themselves and got and received the agency and the empowerment to have that education themselves and act on it and participate. So that is a big help that I see in decentralized science.
I hope that that comes with it, because I do think that there was a lot of, I agree with you, like there was a lot of trust that was lost as people saw the scientific method happening in real time,
Hmm.
which, if you're not a scientist,
Right.
you're a little unaware of how often we have to do trial and error, and we have to repeat experiments and things. We make decisions based on new information, and to see it just happen in public for the very first
Right.
time, I think it was just, I think a lot of people were just really eye opened, where it's like, oh, we don't know that much about a lot of these processes. And, as a fellow scientist, I'm just like, oh
Hmm.
yeah,
Right.
it seems like there's always more, to we discover one thing and it unlocks a whole new Pandora's box of things to be discovered. And I do hope, I mean, I sit in the same camp with you. Like, I do hope that decentralized science can really change that perspective. One thing that I find quite challenging, or at least I find difficult seeing how this is going to play out with DeSci, is because laboratory infrastructure and all of this is so expensive, and we haven't yet replaced the scientist with the robot to be able to do this, maybe 24/7, or without a human being involved. And a lot of these stuff is very much protected, kind of still, I mean, protected in the sense of that it's very expensive equipment and it needs to be housed somewhere that can accommodate it. That still is quite a limitation on having access to the facilities that allow you to do these experiments. And where do you see the field going in terms of this? Because I think we're making a lot of progress with in silico software development, algorithmic development, and then that we still have to take a step into a model, maybe with a digital model at first, but then into, I don't know, a cellular model or an animal model. And then that's really where things slow down dramatically. And I think it's hard to coordinate groups across the globe to get these experiments done as well. We see this in traditional science and also in DeSci. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gosh, yeah, decentralizing a wet lab situation
Yeah.
is a challenge, right? I don't think it's an insurmountable challenge though, although it will take some creativity that maybe we haven't utilized in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that as the decentralized science movement gains steam, I think there will be an appetite for maybe funding a network of decentralized actual labs. I mean, my AI development team is in Addis, Ethiopia. And I mean, I would love to set up like a full like bio AI lab there with a wet lab and everything. And I mean, I know there's like plenty of talent there that would do an amazing job. I could see um, setting up similar situations in other parts of Africa and Asia, and having this like network, kind of like decentralized physical infrastructure networks or types being connected for these networks, having a similar network of wet labs that are maybe all connected to each other using DPIN architecture, that data and things like that. I think that would be a cool thing. And I think as people are kind of waking up to how much more sense decentralization makes, how much more inclusive it is, how removing the middlemen does allow people to work together more effectively, allows people to allows us to include other perspectives that weren't necessarily included before, that were maybe excluded because of centralized architectures before. I get the sense, I have a gut feeling that people are kind of like waking up to like, yeah, this could actually be a much better way of doing things. And especially, I mean, the the decentralized finance stuff, showing how people who didn't have access to banks can now have access to finance and can actually have access to making money. I think people are kind of starting to see like, oh, what else can we give people access to that maybe they didn't have access to before? And I think, yeah, I think there could be movement. I mean, it will take funding, and maybe it's something like decentralized finance can fund decentralized
Yeah.
labs. Like, I think it's a natural thing. I could see Ethereum getting behind that, wanting to fund
Yeah.
something like that. Like,
Let's do it.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, like I think it's a worthy thing. Like this isolationism country versus country, like clearly is not working well for us. So I mean, we're
Yes.
gonna.
I would love to see an entirely global society.
Yes,
And,
yeah,
I live in Europe, so we have like
yeah.
the borderless EU, and
You're
it's just, I'm really for it because it's really nice to just be able to use one currency, to be able to go and live and it just be smooth.
right.
I really do think there's a benefit in just a totally globalized society, and decentralized science being a part of that, decentralized finance being a part of that. But it will take time because I
Hmm.
think these ideas are radical to some people, and
Oh yeah,
just figuring out the mechanics behind it to make it work is still something that's evolving.
yeah. It's going to take some foundational shifts and some value shifts and perspective changes that I see the younger generations able to grasp some of them, but it might be a little bit difficult for some of the older ones. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, like we'll see how it evolves.
yeah.
But
We'll
I'm with
see.
you.
Yeah.
Coming back to just AI within drug discovery,
Mhm.
before like longevity in particular, but maybe more like diseases of aging. Let's talk about this. Where do you see AI having the most benefit in the case of diseases of aging that we've had a really difficult time developing drugs for? Like we really don't have any Alzheimer's drugs. Parkinson's, we have very very bad,
Mhm.
I would just say like
Mhm.
just really
Yeah.
poor options as well. And so where do you see AI coming in and being particularly helpful for these diseases of aging?
Well, so for Alzheimer's in particular, because I've done a lot of research in Alzheimer's, and uh, I Alzheimer's is a really tough nut to crack because I think it's obvious now that there are multiple causes of Alzheimer's. Um, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say there's at least a dozen different causes, maybe more, of Alzheimer's disease. There's obviously a bunch of different types of Alzheimer's disease, and so that is a disease where we've attached ourselves to this beta amyloid theory for forever, to no avail, and we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves there. But this is obviously a disease that you need to look at huge amounts of data for, whether it's blood biomarkers, whether it's levels of p-tau in the blood, whether it's everything from a person's education level, socioeconomic level, because some of those like are correlated with your risk for Alzheimer's disease, a person's psychiatric history, because people with personality disorders are more likely to get Alzheimer's disease. There are, whether a person has, a herpes virus, which most humans do, which one do they have? Like, all of these things are coming out as being associated with Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is one of those things that where you're going to have to look at massive amounts of data and find those connections for almost each person's specific pathology, right? And so, because I worked with enough Alzheimer's patients to see that no two are really alike.
Mm.
It's highly individualized, and so that is a disease where I see AI helping a lot in its ability to sift through, and analyze these huge quantities of data that we're going to need to, for these complex neurological disorders that have multiple causes. So that I really see as a promising thing. I mean, AI has the ability to put together, I think, much more effective models in that way. And, by taking all the different data that we've generated through in vitro and in vivo studies and seeing what the connections are between those and human data. And as AI technology advances beyond just using LLMs, as we integrate other architectures of AI like evolutionary learning algorithms and inference and logic networks, as AI starts to really function more like a human brain, it will be more capable of those really advanced data analyses that will help us find effective solutions for these diseases that have been so hard to find solutions for. And that's what I really see the benefit being.
It also sounds like it's a good case for Alzheimer's is a good case for personalized medicine as well. If
Mm-hmm,
there's so much
mm-hmm,
variability from patient to patient, that
mm-hmm.
could be a really interesting first step into personalized medicine.
Right. Yes.
Is anybody working on that? I want to check.
I don't know at the moment, but that, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a really good, yeah, it's a really good point.
I think also maybe one of the issues with studying Alzheimer's as well is that because the symptoms are typically, these psychological symptoms that are present so much later as the disease develops.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps in decentralized science, and if we're gathering a lot of data, people are contributing, then they get a diagnosis. We then have that early data, which we just don't necessarily have. That could be really, really valuable.
Well, yeah. And then I think also, like, contributing data from other neurological diseases to like Parkinson's, and then another one that's like really understudied because it's so hard to diagnose is Lewy body dementia as well, which is often misdiagnosed as Parkinson's, because that's how it starts. My mother actually passed away from Lewy body dementia 5 years ago, and it's a really, really difficult form of dementia. It presents almost like a late onset schizophrenia, and it's really, really crazy, and it's often misdiagnosed, and but it has all like the hallmarks of Alzheimer's too, where they have memory loss, they have some loss of identity, but then it's coupled with like a lot of like hallucinations and delusions, and just like hearing voices, and like it's, yeah. And so having studying all of these neurological conditions, like in like maybe a not massive knowledge graph together, and some like figuring out what really distinguishes each one from each other too, I think would be really, really helpful, especially for getting like early diagnoses, which would lead to more effective treatment for each one. Because a lot of neurological disorders, I mean, it's hard to like really definitively diagnose them without an autopsy. But I mean, that's another thing that the AI can help with, is actually getting real meaningful early diagnoses.
Yeah. Yeah, when you actually have time to really intervene. Is the diagnosis of your mom's Lewy body dementia one of the drivers that encouraged you to go into longevity science?
Well, I was already, like, let's see, I was 26 when she was diagnosed. So I was already like 6 years into my career at that point. But yeah, so I was already had been studying Alzheimer's for a while too. So it's just kind of something that happened like coincidentally. But obviously did just add more motivation to the whole situation. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, the last like 10 years of her life were nothing I would want for anybody. Like, seriously, like, it was awful. So, and that's definitely why I'm trying to do what I do. I mean, I want everybody who wants to live as long as possible to be as healthy as possible. For we don't want to spend the last 10 years of our lives in a hospital bed, like not knowing who we are, like not knowing our family. Like, it's just like it's awful. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so sorry to hear that happened with your mom. That must have been such a difficult time. But what you're working on now could change this for a lot of people in the future. So
Hmm.
that's really
Hmm.
powerful. What would you like to see change over the next 10 years in longevity science?
Well, what would really help in longevity science is one thing we've tried to work with the FDA, and in the United States in particular, is actually getting aging designated as a disease,
Mhm.
because that allows
I
us.
am with you 100%
Yes.
on this. Yes,
Yeah,
this will
yeah,
help
yeah.
so
So,
much.
with regulatory bodies getting aging designated as a disease, so that it helps the application for funding, for IND filings and stuff. It helps a lot. It helps a lot in that. I think, and I think, yeah, in aging science, I think more collaboration too would be better. One thing I've always really loved about the longevity field is that we're we're not like we're not like the typical like big pharma field, and that we are all like super caged about our data and stuff. I mean, we're small enough still that we all like pretty much know each other, and like we do try to work together. But I think that we could do better, even like, decentralizing some of our stuff, sharing some of our stuff. Because if one of us comes up with like a true anti-aging intervention or whatever, I mean, that's good for all of us. We all win. Like, because once the first one's out there, that's truly like, either AI designed or truly anti-aging or whatever, that opens the floodgates, and it's good for all of us. So I think maybe helping lift each other up a bit more and working together, I think would help get us there faster. So yeah, I think those are the two things that I think would help the most.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both. Like getting designated as a disease, and then just more data sharing, more collaboration. That's how
Mm,
everyone's going to move forward so
mm,
much faster. Check your ego at the door, just
yeah.
share things.
Yeah.
And like you're doing,
Yeah.
open source can really help people move along. And then just finding the better ways. And maybe it is through decentralized science and tokenizing
Hmm.
rewards for data sharing that allow people to still be able to be rewarded for these things. Because I think there's this fear that if I don't patent it, then I'm not going to be able to take it through the drug
Right.
development phases, because then no one's going to fund it.
Mm,
So I think we still have a lot of work to do with figuring out the incentives to be able to
right.
move these projects along. I think that's still a big struggle.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think like, I mean, if we can get more so-called like impact investors into the field too, like people who are more willing to kind of sit on their investment for a bit longer in favor of doing something that's truly good for the world, I think that would help a lot too. Because yeah, it is really difficult balancing, wanting to be open source and decentralized and doing all this stuff, and then also trying to get venture capital, because it's like very antithetical to what they want. But it's like I can't go against my principles and what I want to do ultimately. And so, I still have to like try to find the investors that are aligned with what my vision is. And it's like they are out there. Like
They are.
I have found a couple of them. But it's like it would be nice if there were more people who are, able to do that, who would actually do it. Like, so that, yeah. But it's, it takes a little bit to like change those perspectives and stuff.
It does. So my last question for you is how can the listeners of the Nina's Notes podcast take ownership of their own health data? Like, how can they get involved with Rejuve.Bio? Where can they find you?
So taking ownership of your health data. So I mean, like I said, our sister company Rejuve.AI has their longevity app. If people want to download that or use that, the wearables are great. The keeping track of your own health data is great. Starting to like pay attention to that stuff, and taking ownership of it. I mean, it does require some people like kind of stepping up and taking a little bit more responsibility, which is, takes a little bit more effort. But yeah, so things like that. I mean, to date, like so far, like the best like anti-aging stuff we have are still, everything your mom told us, like get good sleep. Do not underestimate sleep. Sleep's super freaking important.
I
Eat your
agree.
vegetables. Eat your
Yeah.
vegetables.
Exercise, good
Yeah,
diet,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
sleep,
I
have a
mean, if
good
we could,
community around you.
right. Well, the community thing, like, I feel like, on the community thing, like, we talk about all these like blue zones and like what people do like to live to 100 and everything like that. I feel like the community aspect often gets glossed over when people are talking about like anti-aging hacks and everything like that. And you see even like Brian Johnson, like, so for so long was like isolated in his house, and then he eventually got
Yeah,
out and started doing these hikes and stuff because he realized he was lonely. And it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you need community to live a long time. Like people, like you need a purpose, you need people around you. We're human, like we're not meant to live these solitary lives. Like we are meant to be,
absolutely.
and community makes a huge difference. I mean, I travel a lot for work, and I am so lucky. Like, I mean, I have a partner. My husband is a true partner. He's my kid's dad. He's not their babysitter. Like,
Mhm.
he like really, and then I have this amazing community of friends who like will pick up my kids from school if I need them to. Will, you know, drop off dinner for my family when I'm out of town. Like, it's like finding these communities that really love and support each other. That I mean that is such like the longevity hack. Like
Yeah,
seriously. Like, yeah. And then
absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, so really, and don't and it's so good for your brain too, like to have those connections.
Yes.
And yeah, and then also like mitigating stress to the best of your ability, which I mean is a really ridiculous request in today's world. I realize that, um, but every little bit that you can find that brings you some peace. I mean, I'm a devout yoga practitioner, and I've been a certified yoga teacher for 10 years now. And so that's something that gives me a little bit of peace that I try to carve out every day for myself. That kind of grounds me a little bit. So just yeah, to the best of anybody's ability, trying to mitigate stress as best as you can in this crazy world we're living in. I mean that helps as well. Um, yeah, so and healthy boundaries, all of that.
Yeah. Kennedy, it was so nice having this chat with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I can't wait to see where Rejuve.Bio goes and the different discoveries that come out of it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And anybody can find me on, through the Rejuve.Bio website. I'm on LinkedIn, whatever. Like if you message me, like I pretty much always reply.